Okay, we'll get our meeting started. It sounds like we may be getting some bad weather, so we'll try and get everybody out here as quick as we can. We acknowledge the land upon which we work and live, the First Nations and their nations, and recognize their connection to the land, water, and community. We continue to learn, listen, and grow together. After saying that, I'd like to welcome everybody. I got to give a little shout out to somebody that's here today. He probably will be angry because I'm giving him a shout out, but I'd like to welcome I had to write it all down because he's got a lot of titles. So anyway, he's the mayor of Zora Township. Marcus Ryan is here. He's also the warden of Oxford County and newly elected chair for Western Ontario Warden's Caucus. So welcome. He's going to be presenting later on. So welcome. And go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that the amended agenda for the January 14th, 2026 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and a second, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I'm not seeing any. Minutes for December 17th.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the December 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Barnes. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, any business arising from the minutes? Not seeing any, and we'll go into a public meeting.
Be it hereby resolved that council rise and go into a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider application for official plan amendment and zone change OP 25081 and ZN 12505, Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott, and that Mayor Peterson chair the public meeting.
Okay, could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay. I am officially opening this public meeting, which is being held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing an application for a zone change in the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. I would like to advise those in attendance that the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal if an appellant has not provided the council with oral submission at a public meeting or written submission before a bylaw is passed. Pursuant to recent changes under Bill at 185, appeals are now generally limited to the applicant, a registered owner, a public body, specific persons, or the minister. I would like to ask those in attendance that if you wish to receive notification of council's decision, they should sign the sheet by the door at the rear of the room. It's right where you come in. And please include your email address for future correspondence. I will now ask those council members to state any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Not seeing any. There is one application being considered today, an application for an official plan amendment and zone change, OP 25-08 and ZN 1-25-05, Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott, for the lands legally described as Part Lot 6, Concession 6, as in 503194, except Parts 8, 9, 10, 11, Registered Plan 41R-3091, STBD 9457, Township of Blandford-Blenheim, to include a site-specific policy to permit an animal crematorium as an on-farm diversified use. And Dustin, if you could present, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon to members of council, staff, and those in attendance here today. The application before us today concerns a property that is approximately 31 hectares in size and is currently zoned general agricultural, otherwise known as the A2 zone, and is located between Oxford Road 29 and Blandford Road. The property itself currently contains a single detached dwelling, a pool house, a pool, and a barn. And currently there's cash cropping that is occurring on site, which is done by a farmer who lives off site. Surrounding land uses in the area are generally agricultural in nature, although there is a golf course to the west, which is Innerkip Highlands, and there are a number of rural residential lots in various directions. Adam, if we could just go to plate 4, please. The proposal here in front of us today is regarding an animal crematorium that would generally be for companion animals, but would also include horses as well. The building itself would be approximately 10,000 square feet in size and would include a driveway, a parking lot, outdoor garden space, and a 3-meter wide buffer as well. A new driveway is currently being proposed that would access Blandford Road, as the existing driveway, which is to the existing house, it comes off of Oxford Road 29. Adam, if we go to plate 5, please. This rendering here gives an idea as to what the proposed crematorium may look like if it were to be approved. And just to give council and everyone in attendance here today a bit of a recap of how we got here, as many of us will remember, we did have a public meeting on October 1st. And at that meeting, a number of residents spoke about some of the concerns and questions they had, and council also had questions of their own as well. Township Council ultimately decided to defer a decision on the application in order to give the applicants some time to consider what was heard at the public meeting, and also to allow members of council to consider the information that they also heard as well. Through discussions between myself and the applicants, the applicant's agents, that is, the applicants have decided to return to council with the same proposal that you did see on October 1st with no changes. The applicant's agent has also provided a letter which was included in your package, just providing a little bit more information, trying to answer some of the questions that were raised at the previous public meeting. One that I do want to point out, because it did come up a few times, is they have clarified they are only looking to operate from 8 to 5. They are not looking to operate 24 hours a day. As a result of the internal circulation to departments and agencies, no comments or concerns of note were raised by departments and agencies. But in terms of the public circulation, we have received a total of 13 letters of opposition, and also a petition against the proposal, which included 290 signatures as well. In terms of letters of support, at the time of the writing of this report, we did receive 8. Which were included in the report. However, since the publication of that report, an additional letter of support was received, and that has been shared with each member of council for your consideration. I'm not going to do a full presentation like I did at the first meeting. I'm just going to go over some of the main points that we spoke about. As council is aware, publication 851, which speaks to permitted uses within Ontario's prime agricultural land, does provide a guideline for on-farm diversified uses. However, municipalities do have the right to create locally tailored policies of their own, provided that they're still following the intent of the guidelines, even if some of those guidelines are a little more strict than the province's guidelines. So with that in mind, Oxford County, through official plan application 269, introduced OFDU policies of our own, and those policies were reviewed by the province and ultimately approved in 2024, which generally means the province is in agreement that these policies maintain the intent of their publication 851. So to give you an idea of some of those policies in terms of scale that are within our official plan for OFDUs, we do limit in terms of lot area to 2% of the land itself, up to a maximum of 0.8 hectares. In this case, the applicants are proposing 3% for their lot area, which of course exceeds the 2%, and it would be up to 0.9 hectares. Our policies restrict buildings for OFDUs to 6,000 square feet, and in this case, the applicants are proposing a 10,000 square foot building. Our policies permit 2 off-site employees to work on site. The applicants in this situation are proposing anywhere from 6 to 12 employees, depending on what's occurring on site, and that would include the drivers of any vehicles as well. And that would also include one of the owners working as well. So it would still exceed the maximum of 2 employees that live off-site. OFDUs are meant to be secondary to the agricultural use that's occurring on the property. In our opinion, as staff, we do have concerns that if this were to proceed, this would not be secondary to the agricultural use that's occurring on site. As I did mention, there's cash cropping that's occurring on site. Given the scale of this, given the fact that, to our knowledge, the landowners are not active in the farming operation of the property, in our opinion, what's being proposed is not secondary to the agricultural function of the property. Some other things to keep in mind are we do have locational policies for OFDUs as well. We look to have OFDUs located within the existing building cluster that's on site, and part of the reason for doing that is to reduce the amount of agricultural land that's taken out of production, and it's also to try and encourage the use of existing access points as well. And in this case, the proposed OFDU is located over 200 meters away from the existing cluster, and it's also proposing to have a completely separate access point as well. So in our opinion, that is contradictory to what's required in the official plan. So to summarize, we are here to say that, and to make clear, the use itself, we do see a need for this in Oxford County in terms of the use. That's not why we're here saying that the use is not needed in Oxford County, but what we're here to say is that the use itself as proposed at this scale, it's not an on-farm diversified use in our opinion, and we're here to recommend that council deny the proposed zone change application and to recommend that Oxford County Council deny the proposed official plan amendment application as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Dustin. Are there any planning questions from council regarding the staff report? No, I'm not seeing any. Does the applicant or agent wish to speak regarding this application? So if you could please come forward and just state your name, please.
Good afternoon, council members, public members. My name is Daniele. I am a planner with Zelinka Priamo, and together with the property owner, we are here to present these applications, and we also are happy to answer any questions at the end if you have any. Next slide, please. So that's the location proposed in the yellow star. I just would like to clarify that in terms of proposed location, we have considered other locations inside the site, and any other location would require removal of cultivated fields. And because of several other constraints on the site, the location proposed is the one that has less constraints. In addition to that, next slide, please. We have also had several discussions between UTRCA and county staff just to determine the best location, because we have to provide appropriate setbacks from all the natural features, all the other zones, that is, for instance, the EP1 zone that is for the natural features. And in terms of a application overview, when we first started communicating with staff to determine the best appropriate use for what we are proposing, one of the informations we received is that the proposed use would fall within the dead stock removal operation, which is actually only permitted in the AB zone, and the AB zone is the agribusiness zone that is permitted in agricultural lands. So considering that, we just look at the definition for that stock removal operation, and that's not exactly what we are proposing. So we are simply proposing a additional definition for animal crematorium. However, we can say that both uses are similar in the operation. So it's just the definition for that does not comply. Next slide, please. In terms of the proposed development, as Dustin mentioned, the building itself is proposed to have 929 square meters. And I would like to discuss a little bit about it, because maybe there is a concern that, wow, that's the whole incinerator unit, but that's not it. Next slide, please, we can see better. So here we can see the building itself is the grayish area that is darker, and then everything else that you see within that red highlight area is the project area. So we have two circumstances here. One is the project area that is 3%, as Dustin mentioned. However, it's really important to see the scale of the building in comparison to that project area. And we can see the project area comprises septic system, comprises driveway, well, and all the parking spaces, all the areas that we are actually considering here, in addition to the 3-meter buffer that we are providing. And that's extremely important to consider that we are providing a long driveway because, again, with interactions with UTRCA and staff, we have to have appropriate setbacks from the natural heritage zone to the EPA 1 zone, and that's the location that is the best one to provide the appropriate setbacks, which requires us to have that driveway that is included in the total project area. Next slide, please. In terms of the building size, so you can see the 4 units we are proposing to have cremation, and those are highlighted with the arrow in purple. They are really small in comparison to the entire building. And to better understand, when we talk about the building size, it's also important to consider that we have to meet all the requirements of the OBC. And for instance, because we are going to have visitors, we have to provide 2 washrooms, and that counts in the building size. So we have not only 1 washroom that is a regular one, we also have another one that is universal. Also, we are providing for all the employees a space for them just to have a meal, for instance. So they have a kitchen, they have their own washroom, and all of these areas you can see are located towards the right side. So basically, more than half of the building is basically for administrative uses and not for the incineration. To the left, you will see the drive-through. In terms of size, the drive-through itself comprises approximately 23% of the size of the building. That comes in about 215 square meters. And we are proposing a drive-through within that building for privacy reasons. So imagine a truck coming with a horse, and then we have to unload it. And we want to provide that privacy not only for the owner of the animal, but also for the surrounding area and neighbors. I can guarantee that no one would like to see, right, an animal coming, and that's extremely important, like taking in consideration this. In addition to that, you can see the incinerator units. They're pretty small in comparison to the entire size of the building. And a sum up of the 40 units is only 5% of the size of the building. So again, it's not a entire building designated for the incineration, but also it considers all the other pieces that are important and necessary to be within the building. Just a reminder, there will be visits, but it's only for owners that, for instance, would like to monitor a animal of companion being cremated and give them some privacy. And all those visitors will be only permitted by appointment. Next slide, please. Some key considerations. Our application is to allow to permit a animal crematorium as a on-farm diversified use. And Dustin has provided information on the criteria. We have also provided all the details in the planning justification report. And it's our professional opinion that we meet the intent of those criteria. However, I would also like to bring to attention that, for instance, a abattoir or even the dead stock facility are also permitted in agricultural-related uses. And if we look at the guideline that Dustin mentioned, you will see abattoir mentioned as a permitted use in agricultural area, and that's considered a farm industrial-related use. So, although we haven't mentioned that we would like to consider the animal crematorium as the agricultural-related use, it can also fall within that category. So independently of how we classify if it's a on-farm diversified use or agricultural-related use, those uses are appropriate for an agricultural land. And again, on-farm diversified use and agricultural-related uses are permitted in prime agricultural lands. The proposed development provides direct services for agricultural operations. That's also extremely important to avoid any disruption in individual agricultural operations. So anyone that has a horse, for instance, and would like to proceed with a burial on their lands, that actually provides disruption to cultivated fields and also would have a direct impact on groundwater and also soil. So we are actually proposing a service that is also great for the environment. In terms of the proposed development and impact on nearby agricultural operation, that does not hinder the ability for any surrounding users continuing their use. It's not going to have any impact on their lands. In terms of public concerns, considering the air quality, noise, on the previous public meeting, we had our consultant, and the consultant conducted just a air quality assessment and the noise study that's required for the ECA, the environmental compliance approval. And all the emissions were considering the worst case scenario. And it's well proved that all the applicable criteria are well below the applicable noise guidances. In terms of all the other concerns, we have addressed them previously, but I would just like to summarize. In terms of transportation, we expect to have one truck coming in the morning and another in the afternoon. It's not a big impact. It's something that the roads can definitely accommodate. In terms of operation, Justin mentioned it's business hours, not 24 hours. Any potential expansion, that's not feasible. So if we consider potential expansion would be to have an additional incinerator, for instance, but that's not possible. There is not available gas supply, and the owner has already confirmed that with the provider, and the provider has clearly stated that's not possible to occur. So no potential expansion is anticipated. And in terms of nutrient management strategy, we have consulted with OMAFRA, and that's confirmed that nothing is required. It's only required when we have a livestock facility, a barn, and that's not the case. It's still our professional opinion that the proposed development is appropriate and desirable for the lands and represents good land use planning. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of council have any questions or require any further information for clarification on this? No? Go ahead, Councillor Young.
Thanks for your presentation. I just had a quick question. Unfortunately, I wasn't here for the October 1st meeting. I did get my recap and I watched it, but I'm just wondering about the size. I know that you talked about the size and showed us that
Sure.
diagram. It looks beautiful, but it's quite a bit larger than what the maximum of 6,000 square feet, I believe is what Dustin had said. Was there any consideration into reducing the size of that 10,000 square feet to maybe fall a little bit closer into those guidelines? And also about the employees, that's quite a difference from that max of 2 employees to 12. So if you have any feedback on either
Sure.
of those things?
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
So in terms of size, we have discussed that specifically with the owner. We have considered several options. So one of them would be to remove, for instance, the drive-through. That would reduce a lot. We would come up, I even have the number, approximately 715 square meters. That would be very proximate to the size. We could also consider reducing the size of the rooms that we are providing for privacy for any visitor. But in terms of that, it's important to consider, again, the OBC requirements. So we could not change the size of the washrooms. We would also like to provide to the employees enough space for them to be in the building during the operation hours. And we could certainly work on having the building close or meeting that size. However, we feel that, for instance, the drive-through is extremely important to be enclosed to the building rather than having that open. It is an option. But again, we feel that is much more appreciated even for the surrounding land uses, the neighbors, to have that enclosed than open. And even for the weather, imagine during the snow, you have to remove a large animal from the truck under not good conditions, weather conditions. So that would also be good for any person working on that. In terms of the number of employees, it's important to remember that it can be only 2, right? But imagine the couple that lives on the lands and is proposing this is already 2, right? And then one of them working, we rest with only 1 employee additional available to work. However, we have at least 1 person driving a truck, and then who would run the business and would run, for instance, opening the freezer to just accommodate the animal, or also moving around the animal, bringing to the incinerator, and someone in the reception. So the number appears to be very large, but if we start counting, let's say we have 2 people driving the truck, we have 3, because it's the owner plus 2. Then we have a receptionist. We would have someone just monitoring the units, 5. And then we have somebody else just helping to maneuver the animal inside the building. We are up to 6. And then it's not a large number considering what we are proposing here. It's more the way to run the business that requires the amount of employees. And that's something we couldn't change. Thank you. No problem.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Councillor Demers.
One of the things you said sort of brought up a question
No problem.
in my mind. Is it the intent of the owners to work full-time in this business?
That will be, I believe you can answer more properly.
Hi, Matthew Bolcott, I'm the applicant. Yes, the intent would be to work in the business itself, yes.
Yeah, so both of you would work full-time in the business?
We would work not necessarily full-time, but we would, yes, be working in the business, yes.
Okay. Can I ask a second
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
And I apologize if you covered this in your first presentation. What's the relative, percentage of companion animals to farm animals in the business? So is it sort of a 20-80 split, or?
That would probably be an accurate depiction where 20% equine versus 80% small animal. I mean, the question's been proposed a bunch of times, and it comes down to just sheer volume of companion animals. Not as many people have companion horses and equine units as they do cats and dogs and other things. I mean, if we look at it from a percentage, it would be the only, and I think I stated it in the first one, it would be the only equine cremation facility in the province. So you have 100% of the market in the province.
So in terms of farm animals then, it's specifically equine, it's not anything else?
No, it's not designed to be like a disposal service. It would be companion. So for instance, someone could have a companion goat, to which case you would do that. People wouldn't typically pay to just dispose of, I had a cow pass in the field type scenario, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from council at all? No, not seeing any. Okay, before I ask for interested parties in attendance to speak, I'm going to read something off a little bit for everybody, hopefully you understand. As we begin, I kindly ask everyone to adhere to our guidelines for respectful and constructive discussion. When addressing the council, please focus your remarks on the appropriate topic. Please maintain a positive atmosphere by refraining from disrespectful language or personal attacks. And additionally, request that you respect the decisions made by the mayor and avoid engaging in debates with other attendees. Thank you for understanding that, and we'll move on to that. Did you want to answer? I'm thinking a lot of the questions may come your way. Do you want to stay there to answer questions? Okay, perfect. Okay, are there any interested parties in attendance who wish to speak to this application? I know a lot of you were here before. If you're coming to speak, please try to bring new information. I know you're welcome to say what you said before, but please try to put new information. And saying that, if anybody wishes to speak, please come to the podium and state your name, please. Anybody? Okay.
My name is Mike Steves. I'm a resident of Innerkip. Our property resides adjacent to the animal crematorium. A little nervous here.
No sense being nervous, it's
Points may
easy.
have been mentioned before already, but I'm just going to say what I've
Yep.
written down. Mayor Peterson and councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address our points of concern with you this afternoon. I will try to keep this short and to the point as possible with expressing, I will try to keep this as short and to the point as possible while expressing that despite the hired professional opinions, the PowerPoint presentations, the noise and emission statistics of a factory that has not even been built yet, let it be known that none of this information offers any comfort or places any of our concerns at rest about a 10,000 square foot, 4-stack, emission-burning crematorium factory being proposed for agricultural land in Innerkip, let alone in our backyard. Amongst the hundreds of concerned people that have signed the petition against these applications, the many local residents that have expressed their concerns in writing, and the group of neighbors and concerned citizens here in this room, I think it is fair to say that absolutely no one opposes this business model. Of course, there will be new employment opportunities. Of course, it is a service that local horse farms and local veterinarians will benefit from. Of course, the Bocots have a lot at stake in the $6.5 million project, including taking the monopoly of pet crematoriums away from Gateway Memorial. However, all of this would still serve in an industrial Woodstock settlement area, without the risk to prime agricultural farmland, without council voting against the 2024 PPS guidelines, without council voting against OFDU protocol, without affecting neighbors and residents who have built their homesteads and have invested their family livelihoods in Innerkip and specifically on Blandford Road. The question is, why are we still talking about this? Let it be known that we agree and stand strong as a community behind the Oxford County Planning Department's recommendations, as Mr. Robson has clearly and concisely outlined in his reports more than once. We encourage the governing body to act in the best interest of its concerned residents according to the provincial guidelines and protocols set out to protect prime agricultural land with your vote of no, once and for all. We could go back and forth with the Bocots all day long, hashing out everyone's interesting perspectives, but at the end of it all, these applications plain and simply do not meet the criteria set out in the guidelines intended to protect prime agricultural lands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would you like to comment on anything there, or are you okay? No?
No, it was pretty to the point.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Everybody good? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, and guests. My name is Dave Robertson. I'm here today, actually representing myself and my wife. We have some concerns over this. Obviously, I was here in the October meeting, and I was just listening. I won't go over what I've already discussed, but I was listening to the proposal, how they've addressed some of our concerns, and everything that they've said so far is just a proposal. To this date, I haven't seen any environmental studies. There is a water course that goes through this property. I haven't heard anything from the Ministry of Environment with respect to that. Again, the last speaker that was just up made great point as far as we have so much industrial land. Why are we destroying prime agricultural land? So my concern is I live 2 kilometers west of this location, and I have a concern for my family. When you do research on crematoriums, there's no stacks that 100% guarantees emissions free. As I live 2 kilometers due west of this and the prevailing winds are west, I have a concern for my safety, my health, and that of my family. So I'm here today, again, just to reiterate what I had said here on October 1st. Mr. Mayor has asked us to move forward, which I am, and I've done a bit of research. There's numerous properties in Woodstock, surrounding area, and actually outside of Oxford County that would obviously be better suited. They're not surrounded by residential people, sensitive agricultural land. And again, my concern is this incinerator factory could be potentially importing a dead stock from outside the province. You know, there could be an emergency situation where swine flu has taken over, something has come in, killed a bunch of horses, and now we're importing diseased or medicated animals into our county. And this is a sensitive agricultural area. I don't believe that this would benefit Oxford County or Blandford-Blenheim having an outbreak caused by an incinerator. So that's just my points for today. Like I said, there was other ones I had raised in October, and I'm not going to be touching on those. I've already touched on them. So I thank you for your time, for letting me speak.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yep. Anything to comment on that, or go ahead?
Just to complement in terms of the environmental approvals, so the consultant we've retained have submitted a environmental compliance request, and it's currently under review and open for the public to provide comments. And it's expected to receive a approval by fall this year, so it's currently underway. But again, the process takes time, approximately 6 months, and then that's why we don't have yet anything.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? No? Not see anything? Okay. I've already asked you. Are there any final comments or questions from members of council? No? Not seeing any? Councillor Young?
This is our final.
No, we'll be bringing a resolution forward if you want to speak at that time, or you can now. Whichever.
Sure, I'll go now. I appreciate, in listening back to residents' concerns and comments and feedback from October and tonight and from your presentations, it sounds as though this is a need that is within the province. It looks like a beautiful proposal and application. It sounds wonderful, but unfortunately, I don't feel I'm able to support this application based on the recommendations from the planner.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Demers.
I don't, this is a business that's very highly regulated. I don't have any particular concerns that at the end of the day, if this goes forward, that there will be environmental issues, noise, water, etc. The applicants have been very thoughtful and comprehensive in their approach, and I have no doubts that they would be great corporate citizens. They've proven that already in their other businesses. I have no doubts about the business case. You know, obviously there's a real need. But at the end of the day, all that is kind of irrelevant. What you're proposing here is not secondary in either fact or in spirit as a farming operation. And the decision that we have to make here at council is a planning decision. And, you know, I've racked my brain because anybody that knows me knows I'm a big supporter of business, and especially in rural Oxford County. But at the end of the day, I just can't make it fit the criteria that we need in order to protect our agricultural land. So, as Councillor Young said, I don't feel like I can support it going forward.
Okay. Anything else from council at all? No? Okay, we'll have a resolution come out.
Be it hereby resolved that the public meeting be adjourned and that the regular meeting of council reconvene.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, second by Councillor Demers. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and I'm taking to, is a recommendation from council to accept the recommendation from Oxford County? Yes?
Okay. Be it hereby resolved that the Council of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim advise County Council that the Township does not support the application for the official plan amendment file number OP 25081, submitted by Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott for the lands legally described as Part Lot 6, Concession 6, as in 503194, except Parts 8, 9, 10, 11, Registered Plan 41R 3091, STBD 9457, Township of Blandford-Blenheim, to include a site-specific policy to permit an animal crematorium as an on-farm diversified use. And further, that the Council of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim not approve the zone change application, file number ZN1 2505, submitted by Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott, whereby the lands described as Part Lot 6, Concession 6, as in 503194, except Parts 8, 9, 10, 11, Registered Plan 41R 3091, STBD 9457, Township of Blandford-Blenheim, to be rezoned from General Agricultural Zone A2 to Special General Agricultural Zone A2 SP to permit an animal crematorium as an on-farm diversified use, OFDU.
Okay, can I get a mover and a second, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, second by Councillor Demarest. Any comments at all? Yeah, I was going to make this comment before, and I'll make it a little bit now, that, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we have to make the decision on whether it's on-farm diversified use. The other stuff, realistically, doesn't really matter if we don't think it's on-farm diversified use. So that's where we have to make that decision. And I agree, I think we're making the right decision. I do think there's a need out there for it, 100%. I think everybody here probably agrees with that as well. The problem is I just don't think it's the right location, and so that's why I'm making my decision. So anybody else? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm just gonna take about a minute break. I'll let everybody get out of here, and then we'll continue. Ed? Okay. All right. Okay, and our next presentation delegation is Safe and Well Oxford, and it's Sarah Hamalecki, and she's the Manager of Strategic Initiatives and Intergovernmental Relations. It's a long title. I hope you have that on your front door, and I've already gave you a shout out. I'm going to give one per meeting. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. We are very pleased to finally be able to present a final draft version of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan today for Oxford County. I've already been introduced. We all know the warden. So we have a few things that we would like to highlight. Typically, we presume that the councillors have all read the materials. So just with that in mind, there are a few key items that we want to highlight, and then obviously we are available for questions if you have any. So is somebody controlling the, oh, there we go. Great. Thank you. Perfect. So I'm hopeful that by now the majority of you are at least have a high level understanding of community safety well-being plans. Just to reiterate a couple of key points, they are legislated plans through the Solicitor General. It's called the Community Safety and Policing Act of 2019. Here within Oxford County, in 2021, it was decided that all 8 municipalities endorsed one plan on behalf of all area municipalities, with Oxford County taking the lead to actually implement the plan itself. If you had asked me a year ago if I felt pretty knowledgeable about community safety well-being plans, I would have told you that I was. I thought that I was fairly knowledgeable. But I can tell you today, after having gone through this review and update process, that I have learned even more about these plans. And we would like to bring to your attention, because I do think it's very important for all of our councils to understand, one of the key learnings that we have that has really been brought to the forefront for us is that the purpose of community safety well-being plans. It's quite unique, and I suspect the warden's going to talk a little bit more about how it differs from a lot of the decisions that councils make in terms of service delivery and whatnot. But community safety well-being plans don't technically have power themselves, so to speak. So it's not the plans that are actually sort of like doing the work and advancing things related to the plans. The power and the actual push behind progress is with our partners and our service providers. So it's really unique in that sense that we create this plan, but it's not actually the plan that does the work. The plan helps to make connections, build partnerships, possibly identify and fill gaps, things like that. So it's kind of unique, and we feel like it's really important to make sure that that is something that's understood, because it was, I feel like we kind of knew that, but it was very much solidified as far as going through this process. And I think it has really helped us to have an even better understanding and vision of how we can implement this version of the plan as well.
We get the next slide up. Hopefully many of you will remember this process of developing the new plan began early in May 2025, and we hired Strategy Corps as an external consultant to advise us on how to proceed with this, based on the idea that they had experience of other community safety well-being plans around the province. I would also remind you that, for some of the reasons that Sarah said, the way we learned so much during this revision of this plan, or this new plan, is that if you remember, before 2019 legislation, there was no such thing as a community safety well-being plan. So unlike so many other services that we deliver as municipalities, we couldn't look and see, well, what's everyone else doing? That's a good starting point, because in 2019, no one was doing this. Everybody started from bare legislation, which was not a lot to go on, frankly, at the time. So a lot of what we learned from the first few years of this plan was how to do a plan. That's really what the first plan did for us. So we hired Strategy Corps, and they did their own review of what other places are doing around the province. They reviewed our plan. They reviewed what was working in our plan. They consulted broadly. I'm sure each one of you had an opportunity to give input. Your staff certainly did. Community groups all over the county that work with it were consulted, and individual members of the public throughout the county were consulted on it. And they came up with the draft plan. That draft plan was submitted to Sarah. Sarah critiqued it, gave it back to them. They revised it. That went to the summit, which everybody is aware happened in November. And we got more feedback at that time, and Strategy Corps incorporated as much as they were able to the input from that summit, reviewed it again with Sarah, and that's the plan that you have in front of you today. So very much our intention here is that this final draft is a culmination of input from a lot of people in Oxford County, primarily from our partners that are the ones that will actually do the work, right? I mean, nobody on this council, certainly not me, is going to be doing the actual day-to-day work of a community safety well-being plan. The plan is intended to guide our partners in terms of what our collective municipal priorities are that we would like them to work on. But how exactly they do that is really up to those partners, because they're the ones that are going to be doing the work. And to be clear, they're the ones that are going to be funding that work, right? We're not funding it. We're asking them to collectively collaborate in the context of this plan.
So switching gears a little bit to the actual plan itself, you may recall that the very first plan actually had 4 priority areas. About midway through, during this term of council, we did add the gender-based violence. And then this new version has changed slightly with the addition of a 6th priority area called affordability and economic stability, which admittedly is a rather large priority area. And to be honest, I'm not really sure how we're going to go about tackling that one, but I think it is something that is much needed as far as some additional sort of attention and focus within our communities as far as things like food security and poverty and affordability. So pleased to see that was identified as a new priority area. And then I would say the other more significant change within the priority areas is the title People and Belonging. So this is a change that I believe is a little bit more reflective of our broader community and needs. And I think that at the end of the day, what we all want is for people and for our residents to feel like they belong within our communities. And I think it's a very appropriate title, and I'm pleased to see that sort of evolution of that and the work within that priority area. So the next slide has a few key changes that we would also like to bring to your attention. Primarily, I think it's a really important one, one that I'm personally really excited about because it is an extra new additional FTE coordinator position that has been now officially approved in the Oxford County budget starting in April of 2026. Very excited to have a staff that will be able to dedicate all of their time to this work. The coordinator position, just so you know, very high level, will be providing some administrative support to the situation table as well as to the Oxford County Femicide Prevention Table, which are going to be, they existed before, but they will be more closely connected to our Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, which is a good thing. The coordinator will also provide support to the action coalitions. We heard quite loud and clear that they're maxed out. People don't have more time, they don't have more money. I know this is only one position, but at least it's something that we can offer as a way to potentially alleviate a little bit of that extra workload that might come with community safety wellbeing plans for those service providers. The steering committee is another change. It will be renamed an advisory committee, and the composition of it will be changing. We will have to maintain the legislated roles that are required of that body, but we are also going to be adding a representative from each of the area municipalities to maintain that connection back to the area municipalities. Another key thing, which again I'm kind of personally excited about, is what we've called foundational values. And this is something that I feel like became even more apparent to me throughout the summit when you listen to service providers and people who work with our residents on a daily basis. The things that were important to them And I wanted to build them as foundational values that they ultimately become ingrained as part of the work that we do with community safety well-being plans. And I think the lists that we have there's 4 of them: youth, local voices, urban and rural lens, as well as data and metrics. So I think we'll all agree that obviously investing in our youth is investing in our future. The community safety well-being plans by nature are meant to be preventative and proactive. So I do think that is an important focus, particularly for this plan. The local voices is the term that we've used to describe not only what people will often refer to as people with lived experiences, but I also thought that it was important to emphasize just our sort of residents and our community in general, and making sure that we are on an ongoing basis getting some of that feedback and input, being a little bit more sort of engaged and involved in all of our communities as well. So I think that's important. Segue into the urban and rural lens, which, as I hope you all will appreciate, that we know that things are experienced differently in our rural areas than they are in the urban areas. And it's one of the things that I personally love about living and also working in Oxford County is that uniqueness and the combination of both urban and rural areas. But on that note, I think that it's important that becomes a reflection in the types of things that we're implementing and solutions that are being put forth within our communities, that we consider both of those aspects. And then lastly, data and metrics, just to kind of explain that one. I can fully admit that data and metrics was not a strong point, I would say, of some of the work that we did with the last version. In the nature of community safety well-being plans, they are, like, data and metrics is tough. It's really hard to pick certain things that are going to be able to come here and tell you, look, we did this and then this happened. Not only is it a very long-term process, and it will probably take years before we actually have some tangible measures like that, but it is also very difficult to be able to actually identify the specific things that have changed as a result of the work that we've done. However, I think we can do better than what we did, and I do think it's important that we are making educated, data-informed decisions, and so I'm really hopeful that we can implement a couple things in particular to strengthen how we do that, even collecting data, collaborating more on the data that we are collecting, sharing it, things like that alone, I think will be an improvement over how we kind of handled that in the past. And then lastly, just as far as some key changes, action coalitions. So they will be, I don't want to say required, but we will kind of require them to have a work plan. We would like there to be a better connection between our action coalitions and the advisory committee. A lot of times there are these organizations that are part of our action coalitions that are doing this work, but there hasn't always been anyways that the stream kind of going both ways as far as information sharing in terms of what are they doing and how does that meet our goals and vice versa. So we hope that with the addition of the new FTE, that they will have the ability to establish more of a work plan. Some already kind of did that, but it will be something that we are going to ask for more accountability as far as what's happening and how does it actually align with and match the shared goals within our plan.
Thanks. So this slide is the governance model, although I would say it's probably more of a small g sort of governance model, because as we've made clear, it's really up to those organizations that participate to establish their own measures. What are the things they're going to work on that hopefully will achieve the progress in the priority areas that we've identified as a collective group of municipalities. So the Safe and Well Oxford coordinator at the middle there will be working then obviously with the advisory committee to do, stereotypically what municipalities would call clerical work of setting the agenda, scheduling the meetings, taking the minutes, making sure the meeting happens. They're also going to do a similar job with the situation and femicide prevention tables. So offering that coordinator service to those groups is sort of a little bit of an incentive to the situation table and femicide prevention tables to integrate more with the community safety well-being plan. Obviously, the work they do is essential to community safety and well-being. And then, again, with the action coalitions. If you look around the outside there, you have the youth, local voices, rural and urban, and the data and metrics, and below that, the priority areas. The yellow one there of the Heart Hub and Wellness Center, not technically part of a community safety well-being plan, not technically an action coalition or anything like that, but obviously the work of the Heart Hub is again, probably more than adjacent, overlapping with the work of the community safety well-being plan, but strictly speaking, not part of it. But you could well imagine as this work happens that it's going to be a lot of the same people talking about a lot of the same things, so it's shown on here. On the right, you have the shared commitments that Sarah highlighted, and the success enablers. What are those things that will enable this plan to actually deliver results? So that's really, from a municipal council perspective, that's what you're going to get to attempt to ensure that there is progress made in those priority areas. And largely then it's going to be up to when those action coalitions get together to say, this is what our measures will be, and that coordinator that council through bylaw today officially approved would then be tracking those things and saying, so where have you got on your measures that you've established, and the work would begin.
All right, that's it as far as what we would like to share with you. Any questions?
Any questions from council? Thank you. From anybody? Okay, go ahead. You can do your comments. I'll let you do comments and questions right now.
Okay, I just said I don't have any questions, but I have some comments. I've written notes everywhere, so thanks this was a good read. I have to go in deeper, but it was nice. I was part of the summit, and what I've noticed since I've sat here at this council table in the last few years is that the conversations have really increased around the safe and well-being and the Safe and Well Oxford and the plans, and I think that's largely because of the work that you're doing. And I think that when you talk about data and numbers, sometimes it's hard to look at those because our numbers might increase for some people accessing services or the outcomes, but that's not always a bad thing. Because that means that our resources are out there and people are learning and having conversations, and maybe the supports are there or their openness about reaching out. So numbers are kind of, as much as I love stats and numbers, sometimes they're not negative or positive in the light that people think they are. So I appreciate it. People are talking about things. We have to think about creative solutions, and as we talk about rural communities, we have to, and we've said this in many different topics, that we have to think creative and what that looks like, because what our rural communities need will be slightly different than some of those urban centers, and how we can support that. So I think it's just really awesome to see these conversations, how we can support them at this table and in our township as well. And I've been talking with Josh and some of the other people who sit here with me, and about how we as a municipality can support some of these coalitions in the work they're doing, but supporting our community as well, and how we can do that in the future with our facilities or whatever that might look like. So I appreciate this. I think it's a really good trajectory for Oxford County.
Thank you. Anything else from council at all? No? I just want to, I'll kind of throw a comment out there too. It's nice to get that full-time equivalent to hired, because now I always worry sometimes when these things are mandated to do, that it becomes, oh, we got to get it done, and it becomes a document and it sits on the shelf, and I think it's every 4 years we have to redo it. So every 4 years we pull it off and we do it all, and that old saying, about, what is it, anyway, don't talk about it or walk the talk or whatever it is, what the saying is, I can't think of. But anyway, I really like that we'll be able to continue with this. The one question I do have, so are you planning on, once a year or something, coming out to council and say, this is where we're at with this, or what's going forward, or do we just wait 4 years and we redo it? I know it's kind of can be a working document, so if something new comes up, obviously, we can, work on that. But I just wonder what your plan is going forward, if you're planning on coming out and visiting, or what the plan is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big question, because I would also like to personally get some input from the new FT in terms of like what that might look like. I have some of my own visions of, I think, ways in which we can be better connected to the area municipalities. But I'm hesitant to like throw those out, because I also think that a new person might have ideas that I haven't even remotely considered that are way better than mine as well too. So I think in general though, like we've been doing this summit, and that was a way that we were on an annual basis providing updates, inviting our area municipalities to come, and we did it in the form of an update, listening to other community safety well-being plans, and hearing sort of what's working and what's not working, things like that. So I do foresee that as still being an opportunity on an annual basis. I know one thing that we have bounced around before is like a newsletter type piece of information, providing like more regular updates. I think with the addition of an area municipal representative on the advisory committee is another mechanism that information can be shared back to the area municipalities. So I think, long story short, I would anticipate more information sharing back and forth with the area municipalities. I don't know exactly what that looks like, and I'm not going to commit to coming to councils on an annual basis.
Okay. The one thing that I found with the summit that was really good is that it brought every municipality out. And the one thing, and I mentioned it to you as well in one of my comments, was there's such a big difference between urban and rural when it comes to the matrix of this whole. And that's the hard part of making the two of them go together, which I think the document did a very good job on, but that's the hard part of the whole thing.
I just want to comment on your comment about the adding the FTE, because for those of you who don't know, like it was the whole county council budget debate was quite heated. There were 23 notices of motion to change the budget, and this one in particular got quite intense for a while. I don't know how long we spent on this one FTE. I think it was
quite
probably a good 20 minutes, maybe half an hour by the time it was all done. And but I think to exactly your point, like certainly in the end, a majority of council decided exactly what you said. Like if we're going to do this, let's do this and produce a result for residents, as opposed to ticking some sort of legislative box, which, to be quite honest, we've heard from some municipalities around the province, that's their strategy, is we don't really have a lot of ability to actually make this happen, so we're going to allocate the least resources we can, meet the legal requirements that we have to do, and that's going to be it. But I think collectively that the municipalities, including Blandford-Blenheim in Oxford County and County Council, decided that's not going to be good enough for us. We think there is potential to actually get things done, and so County Council decided, quite rightly, I think, to say, let's allocate a resource to this. Certainly it's something that we heard from, not only as part of developing the new plan, but even before we started developing the new plan, from plans around the province that we thought were particularly effective, was that they had somebody whose full-time job was getting this done, and that's where they felt they were getting the results. So I just wanted to, reinforce those comments. I think you're 100% right how critical that is to all of this happening going forward.
I think one thing that was really smart thing too was putting this as a Oxford County initiative, because I think if it would have been an individual township or whatever initiative, it would have been a document that would have just been done because we had to. It would have got sat on a shelf because we wouldn't have had the resources to actually go forward in it. So the nice part about being in Oxford County is now we have that resource to go forward with it. So
I think if I could comment on that too, because I can't help it. I know every time we partner as municipalities, right?
Can I gavel them?
Yeah. I know in Oxford, politically, there's always a fear when we collaborate that's speaking towards amalgamation, right? Like if they're collaborating doing it, then why do they all need to be separate? I think quite the opposite. I think what that says to our residents, but also to the province, if we can collaborate and get stuff done, then why do you need us to amalgamate? If we can all have our relatively small councils and have our independent autonomy for services that are appropriate at the area level and at the county level, and then we can collaborate on areas that on services that are larger than that and broader than that, and we can collaborate effectively on it, then what's broken here? What's not working? And I know when I have conversations with MPPs and ministers at the provincial level, I frequently use things like this and our land use planning, obviously, that I know you're familiar with, as examples of that, where Oxford is really, not only in its structure, as actually a regional government, not a county, but also in the way we actually function like this, is really a model for the rest of the province that, when we need to and when it's good for our residents, we just collaborate and get it done. When it's a more appropriate decision for Blandford-Blenheim to make on its own for Blandford-Blenheim residents, then they do that. So I think, that's really critical, I think, not only in terms of, jurisdiction and service delivery, but also politically for all of us.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else from council? No, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's like your weather's just starting. You should be able to get home. Yeah, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that the Blandford-Blenheim Council receive the presentation from Sarah Hemilecki and Warden Marcus Ryan, report titled Safe and Well Oxford Plan Update as information, and that Blandford-Blenheim Council approves the updated Safe and Well Oxford Plan as attached to the report, and further that Blandford-Blenheim Council continue to endorse Oxford County to lead the implementation of the Safe and Well Oxford Plan on their behalf, with the addition of a full-time equivalent position as added to the county budget for 2026.
Okay, can I get a mover and a second, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? I think we've done them all. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, correspondence, general.
I know we had a specific,
Oh.
sorry.
Oh, there is a specific one there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Denise too.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes. Okay, our correspondence specific. It's, I don't have it in front of me, but it's from Denise too, from the Plattsville and District Heritage Society. They want to put, it's the 175th anniversary of Plattsville, and I believe they want to, is it a mosaic they want to put on the, a mural on the arena at Plattsville? Any comments about that? Yep.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Denise this morning, and because I had a couple questions. And one thing she clarified for me was that they'd like to put it, obviously on the outside of the arena, and I think that Trevor's aware of that, but it would be a permanent thing as opposed to just during the celebration. I also asked her about, the longevity, being outside, will it stand up to the rain and and weather conditions, et cetera, and, who would be responsible for making sure. She wasn't sure, but she was going to do a little bit more research on that. But one of the things I wanted to ask council today is, instead of, I'm wondering if we can make a decision on this so we can push it forward. All they're really asking for is, can we put it on the outside of the arena? And instead of, pushing this back to staff and having them do a report and all that, to me, it's pretty simple. And I kind of feel like, we can just talk about it here and make a decision as opposed to making a big to-do about it. Trevor's talked to Denise. He understands the risk. So I'm hoping that we can just talk about this and make a decision. They're under a little bit of a time constraint here. Their next meeting, I think, is 26th, 29th. I don't know, Tina, if you know. And so they kind of need to know if they can use this fundraiser so that they can, sort of kick this whole thing into high gear. So that's why I'm hoping not, we don't have to sort of go back and forth, and that we can, just talk about it here and get it done.
Yep, absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Young.
I agree with Councillor Demarest. I think I've seen these types of murals in communities, both in person and online, and they're beautiful. They're a great piece to bring people together. And I've often thought about how we can make some of these things happen in our community, and this has just presented itself that it's costing us as a township nothing really other than our space, and it's a fundraiser for this. So I think it's a great, I'm in agreement that if we're comfortable with this, that it can go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We actually threw the concept up at our Lions Club here as well. I think it's a great idea.
The same as well. Great community spirit, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep. Councillor Banbury.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, or to you, Mr. Mayor. How big an area is this going to cover?
I don't.
8
8 by 8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it won't interfere with the structure itself. Say sometime in the future were to be removed, there'd be no,
Is it, so maybe I'll ask for clarification, is it to be painted on the building or painted on something and then attached to the building? Oh,
Individual tiles that go together, like a wall, they're small little tiles that they put all together, they'll frame off the wall.
okay. So are they a painted tile, are they, or?
So
are they,
sorry.
Oh, I see. So they're gonna sell each individual tile and put it together for the picture?
how are
Ah,
they attached?
yeah.
Yeah.
Adhesive?
They'll build a frame on the wall and then they go interlock.
Okay.
Denise also mentioned when I talked to her today that one of the things they're considering is putting some sort of plexiglass over it. Because I was a little bit concerned about, like I said, the elements and stuff. So that is something that they're looking into. And, as long as the Heritage Society is willing to be sort of responsible for, the costs associated with putting it up, which I expect they will be part of the fundraising, as well as, maintaining it and making sure it looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a spot, if you can see it enough, but I'm just thinking out loud here, if it was on the east side of the building, you would get less weather, right? You wouldn't have the sun beating on it, which is gonna be the hard part, and you wouldn't have as much weather. It might last longer, just an idea. I think you're on the committee, I think, as well. Okay. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that, if council's okay as well, to go ahead. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead.
No, it's just, can I put a motion forward then? To, that the township allows the Plattsville Heritage Society to mount their tile mural for the 175-year celebration on the side of the arena, subject to review by staff or by the Parks and Rec, and that they'll be responsible for its maintenance. Something like that, whatever is traditional.
Okay. Council okay with that? Councilor
Will
Bamber?
we get to see a visual of it before it's put on the wall?
Yeah, maybe.
I think there was a picture.
There is a picture of it.
Yeah, there is one,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
It's like an intertwined tree, sort
And a
of.
twisted tree. Yeah.
yeah.
It's actually very nice.
Do you have something up?
Yeah. They
Okay.
have one in Tilsonburg.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll let Sarah go ahead with that.
Be it hereby resolved that the correspondence from Denise Tu of Plattsville and District Heritage Society President on behalf of the Plattsville 175 Committee be received as information, and further, that council approve the request from the Plattsville 175 Committee to install a tile mural on the outside of the Plattsville Arena located at 68 Mill Street East, subject to review by township staff, and that the committee will be responsible for maintenance.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Demers, second by Councilor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Unfortunately, that day, I'm away out east on holidays, but I will try and write up something, and I think Councilor Young, you're the Deputy Mayor. I'll give it to you you can read off for me at the time. Got lots of time for that. Okay, thank you. And next, we're in general correspondence.
Be it hereby resolved that the general correspondence items be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Demers, second by Councilor Bamry. Any comments on either one of those two? Nope. Okay, all in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and we'll do staff reports. And Ray, our chief building official, and since Ray is coming to sit down, I've had somebody tell me that Ray's parents watch this meeting
They certainly do.
every week, and I just want to give a little shout out to Sandra and Ron that are watching there, and I'm sure they're proud of their son being here at the meeting. So I thought I would give that little shout out to you, so.
Thank you.
And that saying,
I
you go
really
ahead.
appreciate that.
You go ahead.
Now that my face is the color of my shirt.
Speak longer today.
Sometimes when you get a chance, you just got to go with it.
Yes, sir. If I may, I'd wish to provide council with an update regarding our building services for the month of December. We issued 7 permits, and although this year was a little bit light in the permits, I'm sure next year will be much better.
This year.
this year, of course, will be much better.
Yes.
Of course, if there's any questions at the time, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions on the report? No? Not seeing any? Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report CBO 2601 be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Banbury. Any comments? I've already embarrassed you enough. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you very much.
Very much. I appreciate it.
Your 1 minute of fame.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, and our next is Trevor Bear, Manager of Community Services. Welcome, Trevor. I only embarrass one person a night, so you're safe.
I missed that one. Just here to do the Community Services Monthly Report. In the arena during December, we had 6 free skates. Had lots of sponsored skates, like the 6 free skates. We had lots of sponsors that showed up for them and provided hot chocolate and some snacks for the community. They were well attended. We had some weather-related cancellations throughout the month of December because of the weather outside, obviously. So that left some open ice. In the compressor room, we had a brine pump failure that was fixed the same day. So this limited our disruptions. For the ice time, we did have to cancel one group because of it. It was a late night group. We had the Christmas wreaths put up for the community during December. They're still up now. They'll be taken down when the weather allows staff to do it. And we've been talking to a few baseball groups for the 2026 season tournaments and some minor ball stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, any questions on the report at all? Not seeing any? Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report CS 2601 be received as information.
Okay, could I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Denise. She's a little under the weather today, so our CEO, Josh, will take her report.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council. This council will be well familiar with this annual borrowing bylaw, sort of a statutory responsibility of the treasurer that bridges us until the budget's passed. So this year, staff are seeking direction to authorize temporary borrowing for the township in 2026 at 1 million. Council might remember that this is a little bit lower than last year, but we just noticed that our expenditures really weren't getting us anywhere close to the $1.5 million that we'd asked for historically. So this year we're just looking for 1 million.
Okay, can I get a mover? Sorry, any questions on this at all? Nope. Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please?
Be it hereby resolved that report TR 2601 be received as information, and further, that council pass bylaw 2527-2026 authorizing the temporary borrowing for the Township of Blandford-Blenheim in 2026 at 1 million.
Okay, can I move in a second? Moved by Councillor Barrenberry, second by Councillor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. And our next, Sarah, Director of Corporate Services, your first report.
Good evening, members of council. You have before you report number DC 2601 regarding a proposed cemetery bylaw update. The key changes proposed for the cemetery bylaw are to reduce the minimum thickness for the die of an upright monument from 8 inches to 6 inches for those monuments that are under 48 inches in height. We also have found in speaking with the staff at the BAO, the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, that there's some outdated language in our current cemetery bylaw, which was last passed in 2012. So the result has been that we will need to do a public notice, which is increasing our accountability and transparency. We've also had requests from monument companies to accommodate the thinner upright monuments due to market and economic conditions. We have spoken with the monument companies, and they ensure us that the structural integrity and longevity of the memorials will be upheld at that 6-inch thickness rather than the 8-inch thickness, as long as we stay under that 48 inches in height. We're going to clear up any ambiguity in the current bylaw and align with the BAO standards and the legislated requirements. We would be required to file a public notice through a newspaper publication. We'd be required to have a sign at each active cemetery entrance. And we'd be required to notify the supplier of markers as well to make sure that they're okay with the proposed changes. So tonight I'm asking for us to receive this report as information and to pass a first and second reading of the bylaw, after which the notice requirements will be met. As long as everything is fine with that portion of the process, then we'd come back for the third and final reading at a subsequent meeting.
Any questions on that at all? Nope. Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report DC 2601 be received as information, and further, that council read for a first and second time bylaw 2529-2026, and that the submission procedures for approval of cemetery bylaws by the Registrar, Funeral, Burial, and Cremation Services Act 2002 and Bereavement Authority of Ontario be commenced.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and your next one.
Okay, so the second and final report you have before you is DC 2602. This is an update to our July 2026 council meeting schedule. In the year 2026, Wednesday, July 1st falls on, July 1st, a statutory holiday, falls on a Wednesday. Staff are proposing to reschedule the meeting to the following Wednesday, being Wednesday, July the 8th, and still at 4 p.m.
Okay, any questions on that at all? No? Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Oh, you got to read it first,
Yeah.
sorry.
Be it-
Getting ahead of myself.
Be it hereby resolved that report DC 2602 be received as information, and further, that the council meeting scheduled for 4 p.m. on Wednesday, July 1st, 2026, be rescheduled to the following Wednesday, July the 8th at 4 p.m.
Okay, now can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Bambury, second by Councillor Young. Any questions at all on that or comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, and reports from council members. Does anybody have anything? Quite a bit mentioned already. I know, as Trevor had mentioned, the public skate, I know I had one on New Year's Eve day in the afternoon. It was really well attended. I think there was 175 to maybe 200 people out there on the ice, so it was good to see, even though the weather kind of turned bad later on that day. It was nice to see. It's probably one of my favorite things that I sponsor during the year, so it was good. Can't think of anything else. Nothing before our next meeting. Okay. Unfinished business, notice of motions, new business. We're going into closed session then.
Be it hereby resolved that council move into closed session under the authority of Section 239 of the Municipal Act at 5:28 p.m. to discuss A, CAO 2536, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, Section 239-2B, regarding CAO annual performance review.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Young, second by Councillor Demarest. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. And we'll just wait till we get in there. Absolutely. Okay, we're back on, and we're into bylaws.
Sorry to start the computer back up. Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaws be read a first and second time. A, bylaw 2526, 2026, being a bylaw to establish an interim tax levy for the year 2026. B, bylaw 2527, 2026, being a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of money to meet the current expenditures of the Corporation of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. C, bylaw 2528, 2026, being a bylaw to adopt a municipal alcohol policy for the Corporation of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. D, bylaw 2529, 2026, being a bylaw to govern the operation of municipal cemeteries under the jurisdiction of the township, and in particular governing rights, entitlements, and restrictions with respect to interment rights in accordance with the Funeral Burial Cremation Services Act 2002, and being a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 1727, 2012. And E, bylaw 2530, 2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Young. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. And third reading.
Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaws be read a third and final time. A, bylaw 2526, 2026, being a bylaw to establish an interim tax levy for the year 2026. B, bylaw 2527, 2026, being a bylaw to authorize the temporary borrowing of money to meet the current expenditures of the Corporation of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. C, bylaw 2528, 2026, being a bylaw to adopt a municipal alcohol policy for the Corporation of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. And E, bylaw 2530, 2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Did,
D is just the first and
oh, you did. I was
second
gonna.
reading of the
I
cemetery.
thought that's
Yep.
what it was. Okay. Okay. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Barnes. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Anything under other? And adjournment of the meeting to January 21st, 2026. And remind council it's at 10 o'clock. Bring your budget binders.
Whereas business before council has been completed at 6:29 p.m., be it hereby resolved that council adjourn to meet again on January 21st, 2026 at 10 a.m. for budget deliberations.
Okay, can I move in a seconder? Moved by Councillor Young, second by Councillor Demarest. All in favor? And opposed, if any. And that's it. Thank you, council. We'll just get the camera shut off.